beat him! For me, for the pride of our race, you must defeat him, please! He must die by a Saiyan's hand!
Frieza is just different. There's really no one else like him in Dragon Ball or even outside of it. He's not even that imposing half the time. He's extremely polite. He's been an unstoppable force, fodder to show how far our heroes have grown, and then a rival for Goku to push himself against. There are so many contradictions that form Frieza's character. Put them all together and it just shouldn't work, but it does. And it works so well that he's become one of the biggest icons in the series, standing by giants like Goku. And that is the key. Frieza and Goku are opposites of equal stature. In almost every way, they reject and complement each other, like only those elite few heroes and villains do. By creating Frieza, Toriyama perfected Goku. But that's getting ahead of things. To understand the genius behind this character, we have to go back to his origins. It's 1989 in Japan, and two titans have collided. One was the country being in the middle of an economic bubble that had begun in 1986, where unrestrained financial speculation ruled, mostly focused on real estate. And the other was Akira Toriyama, the author behind Dragon Ball, who, despite his reputation for never planning ahead, was already coming up with the concepts of what would follow the Saiyan arc.
では努力だけではどうやっても越えられぬ壁を見せてやろう
Vegeta was already primed to be the main villain of the current arc, a mighty warrior from space who surpassed Nappa and Raditz, who themselves had already made the Earth's strongest fighters look pathetic. To create someone even greater than Vegeta, Toriyama needed to expand beyond Earth and imagine what the strongest being in the universe would be. And this whole everything needs to escalate mindset was being pushed by his new editor, Yu Kondo, a polite speaking man who had migrated from shoujo manga. To put it simply, while shonen is manga for boys, shoujo is the other side of the coin, manga for young girls. Yu Kondo's prime direction was that the fights should escalate, nothing more, nothing less. These influences swirled together in front of the author and provided him with the exact formula to create something completely new. Toriyama explained in the Daisenshu 2 databook that, having become the strongest on Earth, Goku and company had also beat the Saiyans, who came from outside of Earth, and then they went out into the universe. I came up with Frieza around the time of the bubble, and the land shark was the worst person of all. So I made him the #1 land shark in the universe. When Akira Toriyama says land shark, he's not talking about a monster, obviously. He's talking about a specific type of person during Japan's economic bubble. These were ruthless real estate speculators who would force people out of their homes, sometimes through intimidation, ties to the Yakuza, or legal pressure, just to take that land and sell it for profit. And that's exactly what Frieza is. He's not just taking over these planets because he likes it, though I'm sure that's part of it. He claims them, wipes out their population, and sells them back. Frieza is really more than an emperor. He's a businessman, a galactic land shark. It's funny then that Akira Toriyama also looked at Yu Kondo, his manner of speaking and carrying himself, as inspiration for Frieza too. A polite, speaking, #1 in the universe alien land shark was exactly the kind of foe Goku needed to surpass anything thought impossible to overcome. And the means to do so, Super Saiyan, is how we can pinpoint Frieza's inception to the earliest month it could have happened. In Dragon Ball Chapter 204, Nappa talks to Vegeta about the possibility of human Saiyan hybrids being Super Saiyans. It's not presented as a legend, nor even the same concept really, but there's clearly something in his mind. Then, in March 1989, Chapter 214, we get mention of planet Namek, which gives Toriyama an out to kill his characters, including Piccolo, with a pre-established way to bring them back. From this, we can assume that he was already thinking about the Namek arc and what could possibly happen there. The other possibility is that Frieza wasn't thought up until October of that same year, just before Chapter 246 was released, where we first hear his name attached to Frieza Planet 79, where Vegeta is healed after his battle on Earth. And then the name, Lord Frieza, is dropped time and time again through the chapter by soldiers, Qui, and Vegeta himself. This lines up with how Toriyama usually writes, just kinda figuring things out as he goes along, taking us along for the ride. But given how much detail is put into the organizational structure, their armor variants, their chain of command, and how seamless it all feels, either Toriyama is just an insane improv genius, which I mean, he kinda was, or the idea of what the larger universe army looked like had begun forming in his mind the last few months. Probably a combination of both. When we see Frieza in his full glory, we can compare it to his initial sketches, and aside from a heavier take that seemed to have morphed into the design for Dodoria, all of the concepts are extremely close to the final design, with a special note given to his hover chair being part of his design from inception. This isn't a static throne like King Piccolo had. This is a device that allows Frieza to be active in the plot, while still not giving a single ounce of effort. Right away, it informs the audience that this character isn't like anyone we've met before. Outside of Pilaf and Commander Red, he's also the shortest main villain in the series, and the only one of those who has actual combat prowess, which I think is a really interesting choice. It honestly feels like the final form of that whole gag. The strongest and most powerful being is, in actuality, a reborn take on the series' very first antagonist. Except this time, he doesn't need to wish to become a ruler, he already is. Really, it's a subversion of his own trope. The terrifying leaders before were tiny and incompetent. This time, the tiny leader is actually terrifying. He shares DNA with those two in such a way that they even bring back the wish to become taller from Commander Red and use it for Frieza in Broly. His design and the hover chair also recontextualizes the entire aesthetic of the Saiyan armor we spent an entire arc with prior. The panel designs are identical, and through Frieza and the rest of the army, the audience is clued in that Saiyan armor isn't Saiyan at all. It's Frieza's. The shape of the shoulders and torso mirror the or position on Frieza's own body, putting his stamp of ownership on every single antagonist introduced in the Saiyan and Namek arc. To put into perspective how insane this is, imagine if every single fighter from the Tournament of Power wore the Pride Trooper uniform. Oh, and Goku Black and Zamasu did so as well in the arc before. It's a level of sheer focus dominance of an aesthetic rarely seen in, well, anything. Emperor Palpatine doesn't look like his stormtroopers, but Frieza's presence is felt before he even appears, and then before he even fights. Frieza proceeds to fade into the background after he first appears, allowing every other character to exclaim how unbeatable he really is. From Gohan to King Kai, Zarbon, Vegeta, the list goes on. We don't actually get to see him fight until 39 chapters after his debut, in chapter 286, which is unheard of in Dragon Ball. Toriyama really wasn't in any hurry to have Frieza fight Goku. He wanted it to be a spectacle, for the audience to spend weeks theorizing and fearing the tiny land shark he created. Then, Frieza once again takes control over a pre-established feature, the power levels. Since the introduction of Raditz, power levels have been a metric to scale characters against each other, providing the audience a quick and easy way to keep track of the new character's strength and where they stand against each other and our heroes. Frieza's power level must have been a hot topic of speculation for weekly readers at the time, and I think the leak culture of today's manga fans would have been constantly trying to speculate about it as well. It's funny then that, for the Tree of Might pamphlet, we are given a power level for Frieza, and it's completely off. Even the people behind the scenes had no idea. No one could have predicted how vast the gap was going to be.
私の戦闘力数は53万です。
This line basically became a meme in Japan, in the same way Over 9000 did for Western fans. The ridiculousness of Frieza lapping the previous chapter's debut of Goku's 180,000 left a giant impression on young readers, with 530,000 being used whenever a number is comically high. Then, for the final power level given in the series itself, outside a suppressed Trunks' power level of 5, of course, Frieza in his second form lists himself as over 1 million. Placing aside any guides and just going off the series itself, it couldn't be a more perfect end to the power level device. And through Frieza, we've now entered a realm of completely unquantifiable power. Toriyama executes it masterfully, as Frieza himself is never once read by a scouter. He always gives the audience his numbers directly, plainly and calmly, stating his superiority. This trend continues even past power levels, as Frieza then moves on to listing the number of forms he has, and then the exact percentage of his power he's using. It's ridiculous, it's insane, it's perfect. It's never again used for a villain in the original manga, and was never done in this way before. The tropes of Frieza's many transformations and gigantic power increase remain, but his method of delivering information and the fact that he has access to all of that from the start and chooses to slowly unveil it makes first-time watching electric, and follow-up rewatches gain an extra layer of insight into his character. Given all of that though, with a foundation present, who actually is Frieza, and why does Goku and his dynamic surpass every other in the franchise? The first portion of the arc happens without Goku, Toriyama's typical tool of keeping him away from the story, so he can swoop in and save the day. But unlike the last arc, where he's in a desperate race to save his friends, Goku arrives and we get a chance to see him show off. Toriyama uses the Ginyus as a way to really show how much stronger Goku is than anyone else, only to remove him from the story again, and shows us that, despite all that growth, he's still nothing compared to Frieza. All that hope Goku gave us and the Z fighters during the Ginyu battles is crushed. Everyone else in this story is aware of this, especially Vegeta, who, through most of Namek, is our POV character, showing us the inner workings of the army and its hierarchy of power. Goku remains excited at the prospect of facing such a powerful foe, but the audience, through the entire saga, gets to see how this is a challenge unlike any other. Frieza's battle against Gohan, Krillin, Vegeta, and Piccolo lasts 12 chapters, spanning chapters 294 to 306, the longest span of time against the main villain versus the supporting cast. Frieza had been built up so much that the actual conflict needed to match that level of focus, letting us resolve the mini-arcs of the heroes on Namek, with each of them getting a solid shot off against the Tyrant. What this does is show the audience that he can bleed, he can be hurt, but thanks to his transformations, he can't be undermined. Just because you saw one version of Frieza get bested doesn't mean that you fear the next any less. Once we reach his final form, the fact that everyone worked so hard against his weaker states makes him feel more untouchable, especially to Vegeta.
And as for me, I'm becoming the thing you fear most, the legendary Super Saiyan!
Do you really expect me to take such desperate boasts at face value?
Vegeta and Frieza may be two of the most explicitly linked villains in the entire franchise. Even Dr. Gero and Cell don't have the same level of screen time dedicated to their dynamic and relationship like the Prince and the Emperor, and for a good reason. For as much as Frieza remains a foil to Goku, he also serves as a reflection of Vegeta, someone that he could have turned out like, that he was trying to mimic, and can only surpass by moving away from his influence and focusing on the positive connections he's slowly been forming on Earth. His defeat on Earth deeply touched him, but meeting those people also changed his worldview. This is easily exemplified in a literal way, by how quickly and easily Vegeta picks up sensing energy. A tool the heroes have is now his. Every time Vegeta tries to best Frieza at his own game, it ends badly. Because while Vegeta might have created the template of the ultimate villain, Frieza perfected it. The perfect rival, bested by the perfect villain, awaiting the arrival of the perfect hero, who can only achieve victory by taking it all onto himself and ascending. This shows that Dragon Ball really is more than just a weekly manga. This is mythic, elemental storytelling at play. Vegeta's end is Shakespearean, and while unusual for Dragon Ball, it works, because the table has been set like never before. Vegeta gives up all of his grief and places it on Goku's shoulders, and when Goku faces off against Frieza, from their very first dialogue exchange, the chemistry is like nothing else. An earnest, low-born warrior who ignores social norms, but radiates kindness and wisdom, versus the prodigy of prodigies, emperor of the universe, polite to a fault, whose every expression spreads disgust and bile. Goku's design is strong, bright colors, welcoming, simple and clean martial artist. Frieza's is sleek, sci-fi, minimalist, and expressive. His features contort like a snake. He can emote like a human, but everything about him screams creature, alien, other. You could not design two more opposite characters who look nothing like each other, and yet you see this piece, and it's perfect. All in one image. You know this is Goku, and this is his ultimate foe. Goku begins to fight, and performs better than anyone by far. The usual formula for the series.
Now that he's done, shall we resume this horror show?
Dragon Ball fights are often structured for the week-to-week chapters. A technique will be introduced, the chapter will then follow that technique being overcome, or teased for a solution next week. Frieza and Goku take this to an extreme, with their game having explicitly distinct phases. An underwater battle in 309, an aerial battle in 310, and a hand versus foot battle on the ground in 311. Each section of the fight creates a change in the dynamic. At first, Frieza is just surprised that someone can keep up, which then turns into earnest fun. Both Frieza and Goku have a perpetual smile, enjoying the back and forth calmly and equally. However, the differences start to show in how the back and forth is never on equal ground. Frieza is holding the ropes down a pit, and is surprised that every time he pulls it a bit higher, Goku can jump up and grab it. One is lowering themselves down, while the other is a man who starts at the bottom and only climbs upwards. At the midpoint, Frieza offers Goku an out, asking if he'd like to work under him. This line gets ignored, but to Frieza, this is his version of "leave and get stronger, let's fight again someday." He likes strong people, so long as they remain so far beneath him as to not be an actual threat. He asks the same question to quite a few people through the series, as the franchise moves past this arc. Just an interesting character trait and parallel to Goku. As a side note, the official comedic retelling, Dragon Ball SD, uses this scene to have Goku declare that he'll never work a day in his life, no matter what Chi-Chi says, which I think is pretty funny. Anyways, Goku refuses, and in response, Frieza drops another genre-changing line.
50% of my power, but a paltry half. A half should suffice to grind you into space dust.
Wow, okay. Maybe he's not bluffing.
Now the game has changed, and the stakes are higher than ever before. What was an enjoyable challenge for Goku transforms with one hit into a deathmatch for survival. The audience immediately tries to think of counters Goku can use, and Toriyama shoots all of them down without a second thought. The weighted clothes don't matter, the Kaioken doesn't matter. Goku just doesn't have it. The iconic power-up Goku has been using since he fought Nappa, and Toriyama made the debut of ×10 Kaioken off-screen. This is a moment of pure tension that only really works in black and white. When Yamcha suggests to King Kai that Goku should be using the Kaioken, King Kai reveals that he's already been using it. It's kind of mind-bending. Still, the Kaioken gets one last hurrah with the ×20, and manages to make Final Form Frieza show a bit of weakness, just as Gohan and the others did for the lower forms. It doesn't last long, and we get a pretty insane panel of Frieza about to blow Goku's head off with a point-blank death beam before Piccolo kicks him away. Again, it's a small scene, but not one this series is used to showing, especially with Goku. The Genki-Dama gives the heroes an out, and it shows the first substantial piece of damage. We get a moment of peace, and then the reveal of the surviving villain. A trick that Toriyama has used before with Piccolo and Vegeta, but arguably at its most effective here. The key detail is Frieza's face. Compared to the panel of his debut, the amount of lines added to the super clean design gives you an insight to the character's sanity slipping, and only works in Toriyama's specific art style. With Frieza's mind on the verge of collapse, and his false politeness stripped away, it's then time for Goku to have his unneeded aspects stripped away too, for him to be purified as a character and ascend to the top of the mountain. No longer will Son Goku be an underdog. Goku's anger against Frieza is unique, and he's always had moments of righteous fury, but this is the most sustained in a prolonged fight. Now the roles are completely reversed, and the fight begins progressing almost backwards in the opposite position. Frieza starts testing things on Goku, and each time, the rope is pulled upwards. They try to have calm smiles, the prior back and forth, but it fades. Goku is no longer playing, and Frieza can't stand not being in control. Once again, we're given another iconic genre-defining line.
5 minutes. But 5 short minutes from now, this detestable sphere will crumble and burst to so much galactic rubble.
The escalation of Dragon Ball that started ever since Roshi blew up the moon reaches a new milestone here. The greatest villain, and the warrior of legend, strongest versus the strongest, with an entire world as the crumbling tournament arena. Through the course of chapters 309 to 327, Goku and Frieza now understand each other. Frieza knows exactly how good Goku is, and how he undermines his worldview of self-superiority. And Goku knows that Frieza just might be the most fun opponent he's ever fought, if only he wasn't such a monster. Goku lets him get to 100%, and Frieza knows he would, because he wanted this as well, deep down. The battle continues and Frieza loses his way. When Goku was losing, he tried to trick Frieza with a surprise spirit bomb, and Frieza returned the favor, but without any honor or pride. It's a Toriyama staple for the villain to be revealed as a coward in the end, often destroying themselves. Goku has to beg Frieza not to ruin their battle, but it doesn't work. Some fans think the finale is a bit of an anticlimax, but that's the beauty of it. The Super Saiyan had his fill. He chose mercy. It was still Goku who beat Frieza, and he's someone that would like to do this again someday. Frieza wasn't even thinking of killing Goku. He still thought the planet exploding would kill him anyways, because it wasn't just about Goku dying, it was about it being by Frieza's hand.
You fall!
Then, we're left with perhaps the greatest single image in the manga. I won't try to describe what it means. A million things have been said about the disappointment and sadness in those eyes, so I'll just leave it with you and let you decide for yourself. Dragon Ball is so cool. If that was the last of Frieza, he'd be in the running for the most perfect antagonist in fiction, but it wasn't. And while that does mean that some of the purity is lost, the benefit is we get to see the character in a different light, as someone else other than the final boss. Frieza returns to the story literally 2 chapters later. Any notion of purity gets put in a box, and we have to remember that Toriyama's greatest strength is knowing exactly what to do next, never looking backwards, and always thinking of new angles. He had perfected one type of story with the Namek arc. He didn't need to do it again, and so Frieza can serve a different purpose in the narrative. From the time of his defeat against Trunks to appearing in cameos in the movies, special video game intros, and GT, Frieza took on the role of the iconic beatdown merchant, a character who any casual fan would recognize and see as a strong foe, but only strong enough to be a benchmark, never a true threat. And while it wasn't the most glamorous role, there was a purpose to it, and Frieza did it with grace and style. It takes dignity to get continuously one-shot and receive no slander from the fanbase. Still, if that was the end, his popularity would have slowly diminished against the more powerful foes in the franchise. For a one-off villain, that's their eventual fate. But Frieza was much more than that, and with Super, he was cemented in his place as the antagonist of Dragon Ball. Resurrection F brought Frieza back, with his very own theme song, a new power-up, and an inbuilt narrative device to keep justifying his threat. Now, Frieza was revealed to be more of a prodigy than anyone else, and with just a few hard training sessions, he could catch up and surpass Goku. He wouldn't be holding the rope anymore, that was taken by Beerus. But now, finally, he was on equal grounds with Goku, and they could climb together. Their dynamic now, from the Tournament of Power to the end of the Granola arc, has been restored to their earliest interactions. A calm and shared smile, understanding one another, and excitedly wondering what they've got hidden to use against them. They may not be fighting directly, but they always have each other in their minds. However the future of the franchise goes, I don't think we'll see a story like the Namek arc again, but the story of Goku and Frieza has a lot left to explore, and their new dynamics will carry the series far into the future. The Emperor and the Super Saiyan will fight against each other as long as people believe they can surpass who they were the day before.
Now let's finish this.
Thank you for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed that video. I know it's something a little different from what I usually do. A huge thank you to The Geek for Fun for helping me out with the script for this video. If you want to see more of this type of analytical content, let me know in the comments. Be sure to death beam that subscribe button, and if you're looking for more deep dives into Dragon Ball, check out my video on the strangest Dragon Ball Super theories.